Well, this coming Sunday is a national day to recognize and remember the deaths of 14 young women in the Montreal massacre. It is the National Day of Action and Remembrance and Action of Violence Against Women. And joining me now to talk about this important event is Lauren Power with Muskoka Parry Sound Sexual Assault Services. Lauren, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this very important event that's coming up. And I know that your organization is going to be running a bit of an event for it as well. So first of all, Lauren, tell me, a bit about this very polarizing historic event in Canada and how it has affected assault services moving forward.
Sure, James. And thank you for your attention and your commitment to this cause. I do want to say that up front. Um, so December 6th marks, as you said, sadly, the commemoration of the Polytechnic killings, murders. I believe it's 31 years ago now. And so on that day, December 6th, we understand and look at the problem of violence against women, the problem of femicide. So understanding that with the nature of gender-based violence, that women are often targeted and substantially experiencing violence at higher rates than most other groups. And of course, we know that that's an intersectional issue, that racialized women, Indigenous women experience multiple times the violence that white women do. The Polytechnic killings were done by a man who separated the women from the men and killed them in part because they were women. And so we know that the nature of gender-based violence at its root is misogyny or hatred of women. And that's a problem in our society that's still carries on and that we work to eliminate.
So, Lauren, with Muskoka Parry Sound Sexual Assault Services, what are you, what are some of the programs I guess you are offering right now in terms of what's happening in our region? And I have so many different questions I'm trying to formulate here, but I guess my real question, Lauren, is where are we at with this issue right now? I think I really want to know that. We're 2020 now.
Yeah.
How far have we moved from where we were 20 or 30 years ago?
Well, I think there's good news and bad news. um, so, in terms of what's some of the good news, we actually have a gender-based violence sector. We actually have a violence against women sector. It was 30 years ago that there really wasn't any infrastructure. We had a few women's shelters. We had a few sexual assault centers. They certainly were by no means in every region. Now we have much more government commitment and recognition of these services as essential services. And in the pandemic, we have been included in those services that are seen as essential service. So that's good news. Other good news is the amount of public education that's out there. And so much more do we see this topic in with analysis in all forms of media. And so that's good news. The bad news is that it still continues to be a significant problem in our society, right? So, with sexual assault, with our agency, we look at sexual assault is a violent crime that has not diminished in 30 years. We know that the reporting of it is actually very low compared to the incidence of it. We know that there are significant problems in the justice system that need a fix, and a fix doesn't seem to be in the offing. And so sexual assault can be a crime that, in proportion to the number of assaults committed, the actual conviction rates in criminal court are very, very low. So that's bad news. On the shelter side of things, and I'm just going to say that this event on December 6th is a collaboration of all the women's organizations in Muskoka. So it's MWAG, which runs the shelters, Muskoka Women's Advocacy Group, and it's also the YWCA of Muskoka. So we're partnered with them, and all three of us will be involved in the ceremony that we do on Sunday. So in terms of the work that's on the physical assault violence side of things, shelters continue to be full, continue to be stretched. I know that during the pandemic, both Interval House and Chrysalis had to take some extra measures. Women had to be housed in motels in the community for part of the lockdown. I know that they've had significant extra steps that they've had to take to keep people safe during the pandemic. And so I just want to say, kudos to all the shelter staff for all the difficulty that they've experienced.
Lauren, I just want to interject quickly, just to say, I think it was 2-3 years ago that we had this issue of unfounded sexual assault cases, which you've referenced to the fact that a lot of these convictions don't really go through, unfortunately, and a lot of that issue before was the labeling of unfounded. Where are we now in terms of that issue? Are things getting better now? Are these labels? Not labels. Are these cases being taken more seriously by police?
Yeah, James. And I'm going to say right off the hop that our agency is right now working in a pilot project with the OPP in our region. So we are pairing our crisis worker, Lori Lamont, with the crime unit to assist folks in being able to give a statement with the trauma-informed crisis worker there. And so it's been a really nice collaboration. We've been meeting with police now for over a year. The pilot got put on hold when the lockdown started in March, but we did start in September because we do have some procedures in place now. So that has started to happen here in our region, and that's a pilot for all of Ontario. So we're really excited about that, and hopeful that our collaboration together will bring insight on both sides. I think certainly as a sexual assault trauma worker, we've learned more about some of the barriers that police face in being able to lay the charge, because the criminal burden of proof is so high, and sexual assault is a crime that doesn't fit easily into having the circumstances that will deliver that burden of proof. So that's good news too.
Lauren,
that's good news.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject with you again, but we have to move along fairly quick. But I just wanted to ask you about this year specifically, because I know there's been a lot of talk about mental health issues. There's been a lot of talk about, relationships having difficulties because of, obvious reasons, people being stuck inside. Where are we on the domestic violence situation? Are you seeing an increase in terms of those types of cases as well?
Well, of course, Rochelle Walker would be able to speak more clearly to this in our region. We know that there's an increase. We know that we all know this, right? And I think that the nature of the pandemic is such that it isn't simple for folks to leave a situation of domestic violence, right? Or relationship violence. It's not simple to leave right now. It's very difficult. And so as well, in the context of increased tension, financial stress, having, uncertainty, ongoing uncertainty, will my children be able to go to school? All of the things, we all feel it. But yes, globally and locally, violence has increased.
So Lauren, in order to maybe bring that message forward and try to provide more support for these women. Obviously, this event Sunday will play a role in that. How can people get involved?
So our event Sunday is going to be a Facebook Live event. And we know that Sunday, December 6th, there are lots of things happening in our community. It's the Santa Claus Parade. I think there's a Rotary auction happening. Like there's a lot going on, but the Facebook Live event will be on our Facebook page. So I'm going to encourage people, if they can't be present for it virtually at 3:30 p.m. when it starts, they can see it on our Facebook page afterwards. So check us out. It's Muskoka Parry Sound Sexual Assault Services is the name of our page. At 3:30, I will be speaking from Chrysalis Shelter in Huntsville. I'm going to be there with our public education worker, Sarah Ross, and we're going to talk a little bit about December 6th and the meaning of it. And then we're going to share the list of women who've been killed in Ontario this year. And that's a list that's kept by the Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses, OA. They do that list every year. It's incredibly poignant, but it also, it's one thing to talk about the statistics of violence against women, and it's something different to hear the names and know something about the life of the woman who's been killed this year.
Absolutely. No.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's emotional for us too, especially as anti-violence workers. It's rough for us too, but I think that we honor those women when we do that event, and it brings home that this is a real problem. These are people. It's not just statistics. These are people whose lives are taken because of a structural systemic problem that we know that there are solutions for. So it's helping us all find the will to create a society that we don't have this happening.
Well, Lauren, I hope that everyone takes an opportunity to check this out. It will be, it sounds like it'll be a very powerful event. I wish we had more time. I have so many more things I want to talk to you about, but I'm sure we'll have more time in the future. Lauren, Executive Director of Muskoka Parry Sound Sexual Assault Services, thank you very much for taking the time today.
Always great to talk to you, James.
Thank you, Lauren.